More than 1,000 years ago, deep in the mountains of ancient China, a group of Taoist alchemists searched for something every human has dreamed of: eternal life. They believed that by mixing rare minerals and natural substances, they could create a magical elixir that would stop aging forever. Day after day, they heated powders, followed old recipes, and experimented with countless combinations. Then, one unexpected experiment changed history forever. One mixture contained saltpeter, charcoal, and sulfur. Instead of creating immortality, it suddenly burst into flames with an explosive force no one had ever seen before. The blast reportedly burned beards, damaged workshops, and frightened everyone present. The alchemists had failed to discover eternal life, but they had accidentally uncovered one of history's most powerful inventions. They named the substance Wu Yao, meaning fire medicine, because it was originally meant to heal, not destroy. At first, nobody imagined it could become a weapon. Yet this accidental discovery would eventually lead to cannons, muskets, rifles, and every modern firearm used today. But how did a failed medicine transform into one of humanity's most influential military technologies? To understand that journey, we first need to explore the science behind gunpowder and why this simple mixture possessed such extraordinary power. The secret behind gunpowder was surprisingly simple. Saltpeter supplied oxygen, while charcoal and sulfur acted as fuel. When these ingredients were ignited together, they burned incredibly fast, producing a huge amount of hot gas in an instant. That rapid expansion created powerful pressure, a force that could launch objects at high speed. Although the chemistry was straightforward, its long-term impact on history was anything but ordinary. In the beginning, gunpowder had nothing to do with war. It was mainly used during festivals, religious ceremonies, and celebrations across China. Fireworks filled the night sky with bright colors, while loud explosions were believed to scare away evil spirits. For many generations, people associated gunpowder with entertainment and tradition rather than violence. Everything changed during the Song dynasty when military engineers realized this explosive powder could also be used on the battlefield. One of the earliest inventions was the fire lance, a bamboo tube packed with gunpowder and attached to the end of a spear. When ignited, it blasted flames, sparks, and burning fragments toward nearby enemies. Though primitive, it shocked opposing soldiers who had never faced a weapon capable of projecting fire. That simple invention marked the beginning of a new era, proving that gunpowder could become far more than a spectacular display of light and sound. After the success of the fire lance, Chinese inventors continued improving the design. They began placing small stones, metal pellets, and broken pottery inside the bamboo tube. Now the explosion didn't just produce flames, it also fired deadly projectiles. This simple improvement introduced a revolutionary idea: using expanding gas to launch an object with force. That concept became the foundation of every firearm developed afterward. However, bamboo had a serious weakness. Stronger gunpowder charges often split the tube apart, sometimes injuring the soldier using it. To solve this problem, skilled craftsmen replaced bamboo with bronze and iron barrels that could safely withstand much higher pressure. The result was the hand cannon, one of the world's earliest true firearms. By the 13th century, these metal weapons were being used regularly across China, offering greater range, power, and reliability than the old fire lances. Chinese engineers also created explosive bombs, fire arrows, and early rockets, expanding gunpowder technology in several different directions. When the Mongol Empire invaded China, they quickly recognized the value of these powerful weapons. Rather than ignoring them, the Mongols adopted the technology and carried it across Asia and into the Middle East during their conquests. This unexpected transfer of knowledge allowed gunpowder to spread across continents, setting the stage for a military revolution that would eventually reach Europe. As gunpowder spread westward, it eventually reached Europe during the late 13th and early 14th centuries through trade routes, military campaigns, and cultural exchange. European craftsmen quickly recognized its military potential and began improving the early hand cannon. Although these first firearms were heavy, slow to reload, and difficult to aim, they introduced a completely new way of fighting. For the first time, a soldier could strike an enemy from a distance using explosive force instead of relying only on swords, spears, or bows. Over the following centuries, engineers focused on making firearms more practical. The invention of the matchlock mechanism allowed soldiers to fire a gun by pulling a trigger instead of manually touching a burning fuse to the powder. This made shooting easier and more accurate on the battlefield. Later came the wheel lock, which produced sparks without a constantly burning match, followed by the far more reliable flintlock, a design that became the standard firearm across Europe for nearly 200 years. These improvements changed warfare forever. Heavily armored knights, once considered nearly unstoppable, became vulnerable to bullets that could pierce steel armor. Powerful cannons also shattered the tall stone walls of medieval castles, forcing armies to redesign fortresses and rethink military strategy. Firearms were no longer experimental weapons, they had become the backbone of modern warfare. By the early 19th century, firearms entered another major stage of development with the invention of the percussion cap. Unlike older systems that relied on burning cords or flint striking steel, this new mechanism used a small metal cap containing a shock-sensitive chemical. A single hammer strike ignited the gun instantly, making firearms faster, safer, and far more dependable in bad weather. This breakthrough paved the way for repeating rifles, modern ammunition, and eventually the advanced weapons used around the world today. Looking back, the story of the gun is not the story of one inventor or one brilliant idea. It is the result of centuries of gradual improvement. Every generation solved a different problem: stronger barrels, better firing systems, greater accuracy, and improved reliability. Knowledge traveled from Chinese alchemists to Mongol armies, through the Islamic world, and finally into Europe, where new innovations continued to reshape warfare. Perhaps the most remarkable part of this history is how it all began. No one set out to create a weapon capable of changing civilizations. A group of Taoist alchemists simply hoped to discover the secret of eternal life. Instead, they accidentally created gunpowder, a substance that transformed military history, altered the balance of global power, and forever changed the course of human civilization.